So this week we're coming to you from KwaZulu-Natal, Durban to be specific, where the EFF launched its manifesto, their 2024 elections offering. Here's a booklet. I always have a manifesto, as you know. Let me show it to you. It's a little bit colorful. It's a thick book. You thought the 2019 manifesto that was about 180 pages was a lot. Well, double that, a little bit under, and you have the 2024 offering. Our land and jobs now, stop load shedding. That's a slogan that the EFF is using. So a little bit of the themes you've seen before when you think about land and jobs. So they're continuing with that line of thinking. So rinse and repeat. I think what's been interesting for me is the issue of the energy crisis. I think that's top of mind for many political parties, but also for us as citizens. I mean, you find yourselves at stage 6 of load shedding. You listen to government and you don't get the sense that there's proper answers or deadlines when South Africa will look at a life beyond load shedding. So that is a big talking point in this manifesto. They believe, now they claim that these are commitments, not promises. You need to think about whether or not there's believability, right, in the messaging that comes from the EFF. They believe and they're committing, they're promising, well, not promising again, commitments, but they say that they can stop load shedding within 6 months. Julius Malema at the stadium saying that they've got engineers on standby waiting to be integrated into Eskom, and within 6 months, a 16-year problem that's haunted every aspect of life in this country will be brought to an end. Do you believe them? I don't know. The answer will be in the votes, wouldn't it? So that's one of the big issues that they talk about. But even through that, they believe they'll be able to create millions specifically, of jobs. They speak about 20 years of energy security. Crime and security in the country is also a big talking point. I think because I'm in KZN, it's important to highlight that the EFF wants to have annual raids of homes here in Natal. The reason? To get rid of illegal guns. Speaking about how, I can just imagine that, speaking about how homes will be raided by police and the SANDF at random as they seek to root out illegal guns. It is a big problem in the country. The answer to how you deal with it, I don't know if that's what people would want to have in their homes. I think, again, of course, they also have constitutional amendments that they want to put forward. In part, the appointments of head of state institutions, specifically speaking of those Chapter 9 institutions. Think about the run-ins that have been happening around the Public Protector's Office. So think about how that appointment is made through Parliament, by the President, endorsed by the President. He thinks that there should be a different way to do it, or rather, the EFF, not the EFF believes there should be a different way to do that. I think beyond the manifesto, which, like I said, in part is a rinse and repeat of 2019, sprinkled with a little bit of dust, updated a little bit. I also think it's interesting that they were in KZN. I think it's important that they were in KZN. So the EFF in 2019 was a party begging, pleading for an opportunity to show that it can lead. Remember, they call themselves a government in waiting, but they've never been able to showcase what an EFF government could possibly do. And that was a conversation in 2019. Fast track to 2024, they find themselves not only in Parliament and in provincial legislatures, but they've got 1,200 councillors, and they co-govern in multiple municipalities. They are in metros in Joburg, where they're holding positions, and you're kind of watching their leadership. So you must watch it at least if you want to assess what could possibly happen if you give power as the electorate to the EFF. But what I also found interesting, again, the pick of KZN, they were growing here in 2019. I don't know if the Abatulusi by-elections are anything to go by, where they dipped in support while everybody pretty much grew in support. A new player on the scene, MK Party, that Umkhonto is a party that's backed, endorsed, campaigned for by former President Jacob Zuma, also found itself on the leading board, pushing the EFF out. I don't know if that actually matters. Maybe it does, but it is something interesting to kind of keep an eye on. So they're in KZN, and it's an important one. And I think it spoke to the psychological battle that the elections are for political parties too. So as a journalist who's covered the EFF for a while, for me, the energy was flat. It was the first time I've gone to an EFF gathering in a stadium, and it didn't match the energy I've seen for well over a decade as far as this party is concerned. They fill stadiums, don't get them wrong, they pack stadiums, but they pack stadiums to a point where even the creases are filled with people. That's not what we saw in KwaZulu-Natal. They pack stadiums to a point where even if it rains, Malema's message is so important to his supporters that they will stand to the rain. That's not what we saw in KwaZulu-Natal. So I think it's an important one, and I think it's a psychological battle that I'd make an argument that they kind of lost. It was a flop. And speaking to people from the EFF, they weren't happy with the outcome. They were not happy with the outcome. If you paid attention to the jabs that were continuous from Malema to his deputy, it tells you something's going on. And you need to be mindful of the fact that this is a party headed to an elective conference in December. A part of me, obviously based on conversations, knows that part of what we saw play itself out is not just about the 2024 general elections, it's about internal issues too. And I think that's something that's worth looking at. I certainly will be looking at it. And the big message really from Julius is about loyalty to the party and party discipline. Speaking about the councillors who were expelled from the party in KwaZulu-Natal, absolutely there's no regrets. And that might be another reason why this event didn't have that finesse, that magic that you often find at EFF gatherings. But yes, he spoke a little bit about those councillors, no regrets, none whatsoever, because as he's putting forward a message to the voters, he also used the opportunity to again send a line of march to his own party about his expectations about who they want to be. When it comes to expectations of what EFF leaders ought to be, if you vote them again into power, he does want them to be incorruptible. He doesn't want lazy people serving the organization. Now, the question of whether or not politicians can be incorruptible, in this case even, is something you need to think about again as you head to the voting polls, as you get to voting stations in the country. Does that message have believability? The issue for me is also whether or not a leader who calls out people who want to have German machines, saying you must question how they've obtained German machines, is the same leader who drives around in German machines, who is offended, who takes an affront when you ask him about his German machines, is believable. Again, that's a question South Africans must ask when they go to the ballot, and hopefully he will vote soon. So for me, the commitments, the vision, whatever you place before the electorate is all good and well, but I think that there's got to be a degree of believability. I spoke about the psychological warfare that comes with the elections, but for the electorate, I think it's whether or not the things that are being proposed to you are believable, and that always speaks to the messenger. Malema is but one of the major parties putting a message forward on behalf of their parties. In the coming weeks, I'll be coming to you from other parts of the country as the big parties also make a pitch and a bid for the electorate. And again, the only way to know whether you believe their messages is not in the polls, and there's so many. It's not in the polls. It is what you do when the dust settles and we have voted as a country.